so use extra, extra virgin olive oil. It's 100% pure, like me.
For 11 seasons, Married with Children was television's unapologetic trash compactor. It took the squeaky clean image of the American family sitcom, crushed it into a ball, and threw it in the face of polite society. Al Bundy, the shoe salesman who peaked in high school, Peggy, the lazy housewife, Kelly, the ditz, and Bud, the loser. They were the anti-Cosbys. But even for a show that turned vulgarity into an art form, there was a line. And in 1989, they crossed it. One episode was deemed so radioactive that the network buried it, erased it from history, and pretended it never existed. For 13 years, it was a ghost, a rumor whispered among fans. Until now. This is the story of I'll See You in Court, the lost episode of Married with Children that was too hot for TV, and why it is finally allowed to see the light of day. To understand why this episode was banned, you first have to understand the world it was born into. In the late 1980s, American primetime television was a safe space. You had The Cosby Show teaching life lessons in a sweater, Family Ties turning liberal parents into punchlines, and Growing Pains solving teenage angst in 22 minutes. It was wholesome, it was manufactured, and it was boring a massive segment of the audience to tears. Enter Fox. In 1987, the upstart network was the fourth major player, desperate for an identity. They greenlit Married with Children, a show created by Michael G. Moy and Ron Levitt that was designed to be the anti-sitcom. Where other dads were wise, Al was bitter. Where other moms were nurturing, Peg was a clothes horse who spent grocery money on a new dress. The show didn't just push the envelope. It set the envelope on fire and laughed as it burned. Critics hated it. One review famously called it the worst show on television. But middle America loved it. Al Bundy's rants about no ma'am and his hatred for his neighbors, the Rhodes, struck a chord with the working class. It was crude, yes, but it was honest. However, this honesty came with a price. The network censors were constantly at war with the writer's room. Jokes about sex, bodily functions, and the degradation of marriage were walked back constantly. But the writers always found a way to sneak the filth in. By the winter of 1989, Married with Children was a ratings hit, but it was also a target. The powder keg exploded on January 15, 1989. A Michigan housewife named Terry Ricalta was watching television with her young children. She flipped to Fox and caught the episode, Her Cups Runneth Over. The plot involved Al and Steve searching for a specific bra for Peggy. In the course of the episode, Al witnessed a lingerie model, and there was a scene where a man wore a garter belt. It was mild by today's standards, but to Ricalta, it was filth. Horrified, she turned off the TV and launched a one-woman war. She wrote letters, not to the network, but to the advertisers. She threatened to boycott Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Johnson & Johnson, and any other brand that dared to support this trash. The pressure worked. Several major corporations pulled their ads. The news media went into a frenzy. Overnight, a culture war erupted. Was Married with Children the decline of civilization, or just harmless fun? The irony, of course, is that the boycott backfired spectacularly. The controversy turned the show into a phenomenon. People who had never watched the Bundys tuned in to see what the fuss was about. The cast even joked that they would send Terry Ricalta flowers every year for making them famous. But for the executives at Fox, the financial risk was terrifying. The network was still fragile. They couldn't afford another advertiser exodus. And right in the middle of this firestorm, the production team delivered an episode that would test the limits of the law, not just good taste. The episode was titled, I'll See You in Court. It was directed by Jerry Cohen and written by newcomers Gene Baruch and Gene Romano. On paper, it looks like a standard Bundy adventure. The plot is simple. Peggy, bored with their marital routine, wants to spice things up. Following a tip from their neighbor Marcy, she books a room at a sleazy motel called the Hop-On Inn. When Al and Peg arrive, they find a VHS tape waiting for them. Curious, they pop it in. Expecting a dirty movie, they are instead horrified and amused to see that the tape features their neighbors, Steve and Marcy Rhodes, having a surprisingly athletic encounter. Disgusted, but turned on, the Bundys decide to proceed with their own romantic evening. The next day, they gleefully show the tape to Steve and Marcy. The Rhodes are mortified, but then Steve points out the obvious. If the camera was in that room, and the Bundys did the deed, then the Bundys are on tape too. Suddenly, the prank turns into a violation. The two families unite to sue the motel for invasion of privacy. Steve, believing he is a legal genius, decides to represent everyone in court. The courtroom sequence is where the episode goes from raunchy to nuclear. To prove the case, Steve plays the tapes for the jury. The courtroom watches Marcy and Steve's marathon session with rapt applause. Then, Steve plays the Bundy tape. It lasts about 3 seconds. The implication is clear. Al Bundy is a two-pump chump. The jury awards the Rhodes $10,000 for their suffering. The Bundys? They get nothing because the jury doesn't believe that sex actually occurred due to the short length of the tape. Humiliated, Al insists he can prove his stamina. As the court empties, he drags Peggy onto the judge's bench for a marathon session. The final shot reveals a red light blinking on the bench, a hidden camera recording the entire thing. When Fox executives saw, "I'll see you in court," alarm bells didn't just ring, they shattered. This wasn't just a dirty joke. The episode revolved entirely around non-consensual voyeurism. The humor wasn't just about sex, it was about the recording of sex. In 1989, the concept of revenge porn didn't exist. The idea that a motel owner would secretly tape guests and potentially distribute the footage wasn't just a punchline. It was a felony. The search results indicate that Fox was terrified of the legal implications. They weren't just worried about offending Terry Ricalta. They were worried about being accessories to a defamation lawsuit or encouraging illegal behavior. The network was under a microscope, with advertisers already fleeing the show due to the boycott. Airing an episode where the plot hinged on a sex tape lawsuit was commercial suicide. Furthermore, the depiction of the legal system was cynical even for Married with Children. The victims are humiliated twice, once by the crime and once by the court. The Bundys lose because they can't perform on camera long enough to satisfy the jury. It was a nihilistic take on justice and privacy that was far darker than the usual "Al hates his wife" jokes. Fox pulled the episode. They didn't announce it. They just removed it from the rotation and never spoke of it. For over a decade, "I'll See You in Court" became the holy grail of lost media. Before the internet was huge, fans traded rumors on bulletin board systems. Was it destroyed? Did it air in Canada? Was it just a myth? The truth was that the episode was gathering dust in a vault. While American audiences were denied, the episode actually did air in several international markets where the legal standards were different. But in the U.S., it remained locked away. That changed in 2002. FX, a cable network that had acquired the rights to the Married with Children library, decided to dig into the vault. On June 18, 2002, without any fanfare or press release, FX aired "I'll See You in Court" for the first time in American history. The reaction was bizarre. Fans who had waited 13 years finally saw the lost episode. And their reaction? That's it. By 2002, television had changed. HBO's The Sopranos and Sex and the City had broken every barrier of language and nudity. Reality TV like Temptation Island had pushed voyeurism into the mainstream. The Married with Children episode that seemed like the end of the world in 1989 suddenly looked tame. The sex was implied. The nudity was zero. The jokes were broad. Even the show's creators noticed the irony. Michael Moy noted in an interview that the episode had aired in Europe years earlier with no issue, and when it finally hit the U.S., people were surprised by how tame the banned content actually was. Still, even in 2002, the network cut 4 specific lines of dialogue to avoid legal snags. So, why are we talking about this now? Why does this episode finally get to be shown? Because the world has caught up to the satire. In 1989, the idea of being secretly filmed during an intimate moment was a freak occurrence, a plot device for a crime drama. Today, it is an epidemic. With smartphones, hidden cameras, and the cloud, the violation of privacy is a daily headline. The issues "I'll See You in Court" makes fun of, consent surveillance, and the weaponization of private footage, are no longer jokes. They are societal crises. But the revival of this episode isn't just about the plot, it's about the format. For years, The episode was available in low-quality rips or edited syndication cuts. Now, with the advent of streaming and complete series box sets, Sony Pictures Television has finally remastered the episode. As of the 2023 to 2024 syndication updates and the complete series digital releases, I'll See You in Court is officially, finally, unambiguously available. There's no more banned status. The episode is included in the official rotation, listed as Season 3, Episode 10. The last vestiges of the Recalter-era censorship have faded. The advertisers who once ran for the hills now happily sell insurance during reruns of shows far more explicit than Married with Children. I'll See You in Court is a time capsule. When you watch it today, you are not watching a scandal. You are watching a relic of a bygone era, a time when a joke about a 3-second sex tape could shake a network to its core. The episode matters because it marks the end of an innocence in television. It was the last gasp of the old guard of censorship, fighting against the rising tide of edgy cable TV. Terry Recalta won the battle of the advertisers in 1989, but she lost the culture war. The show she hated ran for another 8 years after the boycott, and the episode she helped bury is now available for anyone to stream on a laptop. For fans of Al, Peg, Kelly, and Bud, it is the missing puzzle piece. It is the episode where Marcy finally snapped and showed her wild side, where Al's impotence, literal and figurative, was put on trial, and where Peggy's libido won the day. It is crass, it is stupid, and it is historically significant. The banned episode of Married with Children can finally be shown because the monsters it warned us about, the hidden cameras, the loss of privacy, the viral humiliation, aren't monsters anymore. They are just the background noise of modern life. And Al Bundy, standing in his shoe store, would probably just grunt, adjust his pants, and say, "I told you so."